we finally back again. That last live was crazy. My laptop kept shutting down. So had to move to the TV, man. We gonna start, you know what I'm saying, from the beginning, man, because this is some valuable knowledge. Professor Jiang, I feel like everybody deserves this kind of teacher, man. So we're gonna go and get into it.
Thing about Marx is that today we say he's wrong, right? Communism happened in the Soviet Union, it happened in China, but it happened in Europe and in the United States, where Marx said it would happen first because Germany was more industrialized than Russia or China. Okay, does that make sense? That's what we say. If you think about it deeply, okay, Marx was right. After World War II, every society, every industrial society, to some extent, adopted the ideals of communism. It doesn't make sense. Okay? We call this socialism, not communism, but basically it adhered to the thinking of Marx, which is to make the worker the heart and center of the society. And why did they do that after World War II? Exactly, okay? Because workers create value. Okay? Money doesn't create any value. Money just creates more money. Okay, it's speculative. But the workers create value, they're productive. And therefore, you have to treat your workers properly. So in America and in Europe, workers became the heart and center of your society. And the workers, through unions, could demand political reforms. And so our society was geared towards making the lives of the middle class, the working class, better, okay? That's why you had excellent healthcare, great public schools, cheap universities, okay? So the 50s and 60s and 70s was basically the peak of society for the working class.
The baby
But in
boom.
the 80s, we started to change this. Why? Why would we want to
I'm
change this?
chilling,
It's a great
watching
system,
Professor
right? Marx is
Jiang.
right.
What are you doing,
Having the
Gio?
worker as the heart and center of your society, as the central organizing unit of your society, makes a lot more sense than having money as the heart and center, okay? But starting in the 80s, we start to go back to money. Why?
Because people got greedy. People at the top want to steal everything. Yes, you're right. I am black. What are you? Racist for no fucking reason.
Who wants more? Yes, exactly. Okay? So what happened in the 80s is something called the revolt of the elite. Okay? In other words, the problem with having a society based on the worker is it becomes too egalitarian, too equal, right? But if you're like the elite, you don't want equality, you want difference. You want to have power and money in your hands. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So the revolt of the elite happened in the 80s, and this is what we call in the United States the Reagan Revolution, okay? The Reagan Revolution. The beginning of neoliberalism, free market capitalism. And in Britain, it was called Thatcherism, okay? Margaret Thatcher, the Thatcher Revolution. And so
If you
now
don't get it,
you
then you
need
won't
to
get it.
transition away from the worker to something else, okay? Another ideology that allows the elite to amass power, okay? So just to show you how radical this revolution was. In the 1970s, okay, 1970s, if you were a CEO, the head of a company, okay, you were making on average $1 million a year. That's pretty good, right? That's really good money. And that $1 million was more than 20 times the worker. Okay? And that's pretty reasonable. Today, the average CEO in the United States makes $20 million a year. And that is 200 to 300 times more than the average worker in the company. Okay, does that make sense? So, in the 80s, inequality started to explode, right? And so they're transitioning from the worker to a new organizing unit called the consumer. Okay? So they needed to destroy the working class, the middle class. And the way they did it was by introducing a new concept called the consumer, okay? So in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the government promised you a good job. If you were a member of a society, if you were a citizen, I promise you a good job that you would have for the rest of your life, okay? So in the 80s, the government said, I promise you that you have low prices and a wide selection of goods. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So this sounds like a subtle shift, going from the worker to the consumer. Okay. But what this meant was a revolution in society, a revolution in politics. So remember that, an example, the worker has to have political consciousness in order to protect his or her rights, in order to organize and unify and push for favorable political reforms, okay? That's what the worker must do, okay? But now let's think about the mentality of the consumer. And to do this, let's do another thought experiment. And the thought experiment is this. Everyone in the school are 500 people. I decide to give everyone $1 million US, okay? So everyone in the school has exactly $1 million US to spend. What happens now? Think about this. What happens now? Use your imagination.
People gonna spend it crazy and they gonna start flexing.
What happens? What's the first thing you do?
Buying a bunch of shit that you don't need.
What's the first thing you do? I'm giving you $1 million. What do you do with it? Well, the first thing you do is buy something, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to buy? $1 million is a lot of money. What do you want to buy now? You buy a house, right? That's great. That's a great purchase. Then what do you do with? Then what do you do?
You gotta buy a bunch of stuff. What else?
Okay. First thing is now buys a house. Then what does he do? To me, buy furniture. Then what does he do? There's something that he must do that's very important. Once he buy the house, what does he want to do? He wants to take pictures and post on social media, right? So everyone sees it on social media. Then you see this, now has this huge house in Beijing with lots of fancy furniture. What do you do now?
Flexing on your haters.
You also want to buy a house. But what kind of house?
A bigger house.
A bigger house, right? And then what do?
Post your house.
You also post pictures, okay? Then how do other people feel?
Worse than you.
You think this is funny, okay? But this happens all the time. So,
social media.
Very quickly, what happens in the school? And you all spend your money, you all go into debt, right? Because you're in competition with each other to buy the biggest thing. And $1 million is a lot of money, but it's not enough to buy everything, right? So you go into debt, you borrow more money to buy more things. And then what happens? And then what happens? How do you guys feel about each other? Do you guys have lunch together? Do you guys have dinner together? Do you guys like to share homework together?
No.
You guys hate each other, right? At the end of the day, what will happen is you all go into debt and you all hate each other.
Right.
Right? So that's consumerism. This is what consumerism is. Consumerism creates a competition in society for prestige, okay? To see who can post the nicest social media pictures. This leads to the individualization or the optimization of you, okay? In other words, you are now unable to act together. You don't want to organize, you don't want to act in solidarity, okay? And ultimately, this means that you develop economic logic, okay? And what is economic logic? It's to see the world only through the lens of capital. Okay, does that make sense? So when you see someone and you're like, okay, well, do I want to date this person? You don't ask, oh, is this person a nice person? You ask yourself, how much money does this person have? Okay, you understand? You use economic logic in order to understand the world and to reason and analyze the world, okay? Now, let me ask you this question. Today, is this how China works? Is this how the world works? The answer is yes, okay? Are you like this? Yes, you are like this. You've been brainwashed into thinking that this is the only way to behave and to think. You're in school. Why are you in school? So you can get a good job. Why? To make money. So you can buy things, okay? You understand? That's how you all think. But there are different ways to think about school, right? You're like, I'm in school to learn, to open my mind, to have an imagination, to think critically about the world, right? And that was the way we thought about school when the workers were dominant. But now that consumers are dominant, all we think about is, how do I get a good job? How do I buy a bigger house? Because I want to post on social media. Okay? So, if you think about this, what this really is the perfection of slavery.
Dang.
Does it make sense? What does this phrase mean? The perfection of slavery.
The things you own end up owning you.
Yeah, you become a slave of the money, but what? What is perfect? Yes, okay? You understand? If you're a slave, you rebel.
He's
right?
talking about consumerism.
But you don't know you're a slave, and you
capitalism.
like this, you choose this, then you will never rebel, okay? So the consumerism is the perfection of slavery, okay? And that's why Francis Fukuyama thinks that consumerism is the end of history, because it is a system that achieves what the elites want, and the masses are unwilling and unable to protest and rebel. Okay, does that make sense? It's a perfect system.
What he was basically saying, it made perfect sense. That's why people sign all the contracts they have. Now they trying to introduce 50-year mortgages and all of that shit. Consumerism teaches you to not have community or unity. It makes everybody think that they are better than somebody. Everybody trying to be better than the next person instead of us coming together, which the people at the top, that's the plan. That's why they say consumerism, he basically saying capitalism is the perfection of slavery, because people trade their time. You will never get your time back no matter what you do. You can spend money, you can do this and that, but the time that you have to punch in the clock and all of that shit, you will never get that back. So some people end up, that's why you see people, they work 80 some hours and they miss out on their family and shit like that. Like, your time is the most precious asset that you have. You cannot replace time no matter what. Like, 10 minutes ago will never happen again. What you did a year ago will never, you can never go back to that. So yeah, he definitely, I found this dude, and I gotta share this with you. Like, people have to know this. Which part? It's a few of these I seen. see this. You can't see this shit.
Revive your courage.
Thank you.
All right. The main influence is in modernism, a transformative art movement beginning around the early 20th century. All right. So, arguably, the first great modern artist is James.Joyce, who in 1922 published Ulysses. James.Joyce was Irish. He was an Irish expatriate, and he actually studied Dante in university. So he wrote Ulysses as a way to imitate, almost surpass Dante. And of course, Ulysses refers to Homer's Odyssey. Now, we're going to read a passage from Ulysses to understand the power struggle.
This video is perfect.
So let's do a PPT, and I'll explain to you how America is destroying the world. Okay, sorry about this.
Oh, this is the back. Is
I actually need to go back to the beginning. Okay, death by meritocracy. All right, so let's go. Okay, so if you graph, what you can see is this. In the year 1875, the best universities in the world were actually not in America. They were in Germany. Germany was producing the most Nobel Prize winners. Second was France, followed by the UK, okay? And America was non-existent. But because of its investments in research universities, it started to move up and up. And then it won World War II, so now I can import all these German scientists, and that's why it dominates today. So the best universities in the world are now in America, Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. All right. Now, as each university is better and better, they're letting more students, okay? And as you can see, more and more American students are now going to college. Before, in 1940, it was only about 5% of all males who went to university. Today, it's almost, it's 35% basically. Okay, so that's a huge step. And you would think that with the increase in America become much more equal and tidy, right?
No.
Well, the opposite has happened. Okay? America has become a much more unequal society. This is something called the Gini coefficient, which measures inequality. And as you can see, these past 20 years, it's gone way up. It's among the highest in the world. Meaning America right now is one of the most unequal societies in the world, even though over a third of its young people go and graduate from college.
How is that possible?
This is a graph of social mobility, okay? So the graph, the top, this number shows you if the number of people who are doing better than their parents. As you can see, in the year 1940, most people are doing better than their parents. But over time, it's no one's doing better than their parents, okay? So your generation, you will not do better than your parents, most of you, okay? Income inequality has gone way up in the United States. The top 1% control most of the wealth in the United States, as you can see from this map, okay? So even though America has become wealthier, it's actually going to just the 1%. At the same time, universities are becoming much more expensive, okay? So this is leading to student debt. And you can see how student loans has gone way up. So in America, student debt is the only type of debt that you can never ever get rid of. You can't declare bankruptcy. This debt cannot be be gotten rid of. Okay, when you die, it passes on to your children. Okay, so this is a terrible situation for young people in America. This is actually a more stark graph where tuition has gone way up, but wages have stayed pretty stagnant. Okay. And it's leading to depression among teenagers. Okay? And also, the thing about this graph is the middle class and wealthy students are much more likely to be depressed and identify as depressed than poor students. Right? So this is leading to a crisis in America. So what has happened? Well, you have two individuals who create the meritocracy. The first is named James.B. Conant. He was president of Harvard for a couple of decades, and he was the person who ran the SAT in order to identify scholarship students. And he made Harvard into the best research university in America. Okay? And he was determined to make Harvard into the best university in the world, as well as an institutional power in America, meaning that it would now decide who wins and who loses in America. The man who would help him is named Harry Chauncey. He was dean of Harvard, who was in charge of the scholarship program. Then he got a new job at a new organization called ETS. You know ETS because it's Education Testing Services. They're the ones responsible for the SAT, the TOEFL, the AP, the GRE, okay? So these two together create the modern meritocracy. And as you can imagine, because you're both from Harvard,
I just have to say this. So there is one company that creates all of the tests. This, yeah, I see why I called. Thank you,
the entire system is set up to benefit Harvard. Okay? And guess what, guys? It worked. Okay? So in the year 1940, 90% of applicants for Harvard got accepted. Now it's gone way down to 5%. Okay? Stanford is even lower. Okay? So now it's so hard to get into Harvard. At the same time, look at the cash of Harvard. Okay? This is called the endowment. The amount of money they have at Harvard is just ridiculous. They have more money than most countries in the world. Right now, their endowment is about $40 billion. Okay? And it's just the past 30, 40 years. The success of the Harvard alumni is just incredible. The most billionaires in America, Harvard graduates more billionaires than any other place, okay? 127 billionaires in 2024. Second is Stanford. All right? No one else comes close. But not only that, but it's also anyone with over $100 million. Most of them graduate from Harvard, okay? 7% of all people in America who have over $100 million in net worth graduate from Harvard, okay? Then you have MIT, Stanford, Pennsylvania, Columbia, Yale, Cornell, Princeton. Guess what, guys? Ivy League plus MIT.
Yeah, Ivy League.
Okay, $30 million. Still Harvard is number one, okay? All right, so their graduates are most successful in America. Okay, but it's not just rich people, it's everyone in the American elite. Okay, most of them are graduates of the elite universities. Okay, so this is an article in Nature, and they looked at all the elite in America. And what they discovered is most of them went to certain schools, the elite universities, and this is what's causing a lot of global conflict in America today. All right, so let's just look at what they found. The red is Harvard graduates. Okay, the green are Harvard plus Ivy League. And as you can see, Harvard is everywhere, even among generals, admirals. There's Harvard people. Okay, they dominate in terms of philosophers and professors. But they're everywhere. Even Pulitzer Prize winners, billionaires, New York Times bestselling authors, Fortune 500 CEOs, federal judges, senators, okay? They're everywhere. Okay, that's the power of Harvard. This is a portion of Harvard graduates compared with the general population. This is a portion of Harvard graduates compared with the elite. Okay? You see the contrast. So Harvard and Ivy League dominate America today. Now, what's amazing is Harvard people don't know they dominate Harvard. They don't know they're elite. So they did a survey, and so they asked people in this organization, how many people do you think in this organization went to Harvard and other elite universities? So the red is the actual number, the blue is the estimate. So Harvard actually don't even know they dominate America. Okay, and you ask them like, no, it's conspiracy theory. No, he's spreading conspiracy theories. We're just average people. There's no way Harvard controls America.
Blinded by privilege.
Right? Now, as I mentioned, at Harvard, just going to Harvard is not enough. You have to join the elite social club, the social secret society. So at Harvard, this place called, at Harvard, everyone should join a porcelain club, okay? At Princeton, it's the Ivy Club. And these are secret societies. Well, they're not really secret, but they're senior societies, okay? They're clubs that everyone should join. At Yale, it's Skull and Bones. Okay? Skull and Bones is the most famous college secret society. They're not that secret. They like to brag that they're Skull and Bones. They're so powerful that they produce a lot of presidents, a lot of rich people, okay? 2004, okay? George W. Bush versus John Kerry. Guess what, guys? John Kerry's the Democratic nominee, George Bush is Republican nominee, right? And they're both Skull and Bones. They're both Yale Skull and Bones. Okay? So it's a rigged game.
Wow. Oh, fuck, I'm trying to skip this other
Start something beautiful, Kate Spade.
This is insane. So both of the presidents fighting on the same team. So when people say they with every party, it don't make sense.
Apartments.com helps me find a place I never want to leave. And neither do my friends. Find your place on Apartments.com.
Zaxby's just dropped new lemon pepper. So you can get that zesty lemon and cracked black pepper flavor you love on the chicken you love. Lemon pepper fans, this one's for you. Zaxby's lemon pepper dry rub. Who's got the sauce?
A lot of times people try to base their journeys off of what other people are doing.
Well, Barack Obama, okay? Barack Obama, Columbia, went to Harvard Law School, but he promised hope and change. He told people in 2008 that the game is rigged against them, that he'll be the champion, that he would make America more fair.
Wolf and sheep
Okay?
clothing.
And he won. Why? Because, well, so this is his book, Fuse My Father. It was a New York Times bestseller. It basically launched his political career. He won because in 2008, the U.S. economy collapsed. Why? Because the U.S. banks, the U.S. political system was controlled by Ivy League graduates, by just people who were friends with each other. And so they cheated. They became corrupt. Okay? They basically destroyed the American economy. And people protested against all this. And Barack Obama promised that he would come in and do something about it. Okay? Well, he did do something about it. Right? So his economic team, he appointed quite a few individuals. These are the two most famous. Larry Summers, who was a Harvard graduate as well as a president of Harvard. And he was Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, and he was the guy who created the mess in the first place. And then Tim Geithner, who was a Dartmouth graduate, and he was the Treasury Secretary, okay? So these are friends of Wall Street who came in to save Wall Street. So a lot of critics say, you know, it's Wall Street who created this mess, who destroyed the American economy, they should be punished, or at least they should feel some pain. If you just let them go and help them out and save them, then you create a problem called moral hazard. Okay, the moral hazard is if you don't have any consequences for your mistake, you will do it again. Okay? And then there's some who said, no, you guys are seeing it incorrectly. We have to save the American economy. The goal is not to save the banks and my friend. The goal is to save the American people and the American economy, and that's why we're bailing out the banks by giving them free money. Okay? And then the critics were like, well, how about all these American homeowners who lost their homes? Shouldn't we help them as well? And you know what Larry Summers said? Moral hazard, guys. You understand? Moral hazard? If we help out these ordinary Americans, they won't learn anything. Okay? So, as you can see, people were angry. The banks got saved, the people got screwed over. And guess what, guys? Because of this, who did we get? This guy. Okay? This is why he won. There were millions of Americans who voted for Barack Obama because he promised hope and change. And then they voted for Donald Trump because he promised to destroy the system. Okay? That's what we have Donald Trump. Now, funny story about Donald Trump and Barack Obama. So Barack Obama and Donald Trump were always adversaries. In fact, Donald Trump led a movement which accused Barack Obama of not being born in America. He's born in America, but Donald Trump was saying no, he was actually born in Nigeria because his father is from Nigeria. So Barack Obama made fun of Donald Trump. 2011, there's a big dinner, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where Barack Obama gets on stage and makes fun of Donald Trump. Okay? He says, hey, if Donald Trump ever became president, this is what the White House would look like. It'd be a casino.
They building the ballroom right now.
And this is funny, right?
Yeah,
Donald Trump was in the audience that day, and everyone was laughing at him. And that's what motivated Donald Trump to become president of the United States. Okay, so thank Obama for Donald Trump. Without Obama, there would be no Donald Trump.
Wow.
Okay, so it's not just Barack Obama, it's a lot of people in the American political class. They're just soulless robots, okay? This man is Jiang.This, he's the vice president for Donald Trump. Like Barack Obama, he wrote a book, a bestseller called Hillbilly Elegy, and it's possible he becomes president of the United States as well. Now, you may not know this, but when he first came to prominence, he opposed Donald Trump. He thought that Donald Trump would be a fascist and be a dictator and all that. And then suddenly he changes his opinion and says, Donald Trump is the greatest guy in the world. Okay? So these guys, like Jiang.This and Barack Obama, they have no ideas of their own. They're just puppets. They just tell people what they want to hear. All they know is that, so another example of this man's name is Johnny Kim, okay? And he'll probably run for president of the United States one day, or at least be a U.S. Senator. Why do I mention him? Guess what, guys? He was a Navy SEAL, which is the top position you can ever achieve in the military. He was a secret soldier, okay? He went to Harvard Medical School, became a doctor. And then he joined NASA, became an astronaut.
This nigga.
This is like the ideal Ivy League graduate, okay? This is what Harvard wants. Now, why is he able to do all this? Well, because this is his Wikipedia entry, okay? In 2002, the police went into his house and killed his father. He was there and he saw the police kill his father. He was traumatized for life. His father was a domestic abuser. The father was violent, crazy, hit him all the time. Okay? So he has dissociative personality disorder. And in fact, if you look at most of all these really successful people, they do have dissociative personality disorder. And that's why he was able to do all that. Because he turned the trauma into an energy to drive him to greater and greater achievement. The problem, though, is he has no ideas of his own. He's just a puppet guy, okay? So let's conclude and summarize why the meritocracy is so great. It creates this extreme inequality in America, okay? So it destroys the school system because all people care about are their grades now, right? People don't care about learning anymore. All they want are the grades.
Literally.
In fact, If you get a bad grade, you'll probably complain to the teacher. In which case, the teacher's not afraid to teach you, because if the teacher tries to challenge you, make you a better student, you'll just complain. Okay? And if you don't succeed, your parents will come and complain. Okay? Traumatized children. Okay? Okay? If you look at the rate of mental illness in China and America, it's just insane. Deaf American dream and social mobility, you're not going to be richer than your parents. You're just not. Wealth, power, and status in the 1%. The richest get richer. Political divide between left and right. Okay, so we have more political divisions right now in America. Corruption. So Wall Street just steals and steals and steals, and no one doing anything about it. Destruction of American identity, polarization, immigration, woke ideology. Okay. Incompetent mismanagement. Look at COVID. Look at the fact that America now has $37 trillion in debt. An elite that is soulless, mediocre, and unimaginative. Okay, Barack Obama, Judy Banks. This guy, Johnny Kim. Okay, they're just robots. Oh, and Donald Trump. Okay, so thank you, American meritocracy, for destroying the world.
I'm trying to, we can't do the information overload because the last 2 videos was a lot to take in. But he just basically explained America is ruining the entire world. Like, this is, and it's right there in people's face. The fact that he's teaching this in a classroom, he in Canada, I'm pretty sure in America, he could not say these kind of things. But it's just like, I'm so glad that there are others that can see what has been going on and not just blinded by sheep, and how he even called out the puppets. Like, it's so, all these celebrities, all the people that people worship, literally don't give a fuck about them. Like, they don't care about you, your humanity, nothing. But people will put these people on pedestals and stuff like that, not knowing that these people are just doing what they are told from those above them. Like, it's a crazy world we live in, man. I think we're gonna do one more. It's one that I seen. He basically explained the secret societies down to the fact, and I was like, yeah, damn, he can say that? There you go. What's so secret about these secret societies? These long ass ever.
One bag, infinite possibilities. Kate Spade.
That's the thing about being hungry. It's stressful.
Yeah, damn.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is explain to you what most Christians believe about their religion, okay? This is called the Orthodox or the canonical perspective. Okay, so this is what you're taught officially by the church. Christianity has many different factions, but they all believe in a certain interpretation of the Bible, okay? Then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to show you the apocryphal just means hidden, okay? Or secret, or esoteric. This is the secret knowledge that is kept within these secret societies. All right, so the Orthodox canonical comes from a reading of the Bible. And the Bible, at its core, is a story of the covenant between God and humans, okay? Covenant. Covenant means contract or understanding. So throughout the Bible, there are a series of covenants, okay? The first covenant is between Adam and God. So you may have heard of a story of the Garden of Eden, right? Yeah. God creates the universe, then creates the Garden of Eden, where he puts Adam and Eve. And God says to Adam and Eve, this is paradise. You don't have to work. Just enjoy life. The food is free. The food is plentiful. Every day you'll be happy and free of want. You will live forever. But there's only one thing that you must not do. And only one thing, okay? Whatever you do not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Just don't do that and you'll be okay. So of course, what do Adam and Eve do? They eat the stupid fruit, okay? So then what God does is he banishes Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, and now they're forced to work to grow food to feed themselves, okay? And this leads to society, the development of society. God looks down from the heavens and sees that humans now are going to war. They are fighting their private property. And God says, I don't want this crap. This is not why I created humans. Okay? So he's like, you know what, I'm going to destroy everyone and start over. But then he sees a human that he likes named Noah. And this leads to God saying to Noah, build a ship, build an ark, and save yourself, because I will flood the universe. I will destroy the world. So God destroys the world, and Noah lives. And then God says to Noah, you know what? That's kind of silly. I should have destroyed the universe. I promise never ever destroy the world again. Okay? That is his covenant with Noah. But God sees that humans are still wicked and evil. And he says, you know what? I need to find a man who is good. And I need him to grow a nation that can be the light of the world, that will be the best example of what it means to be a good person. So he finds a man named Abraham, and Abraham, of course, is the father of a nation called Israel. And so this is the third covenant. God says to Abraham, you and your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are now loyal to me. I see you as the chosen people, and I give you the promised land. Okay, that's what Israel is, the promised land. Over time, what happens is that Abraham and his people, they go to Egypt. And in Egypt, they become slaves to the Pharaoh of Egypt. And then God is like, you know what, I should check up on the Israelites and see how they're doing. He looks down and he says, oops, they're now slaves to the Pharaoh. So I need not to fix this, okay? So we appoint a man named Moses to free the Israelites from Egypt and take them back to the promised land. When Moses does this, God says, now what you must do is give the Israelites my law, the Ten Commandments. Okay? The law. Because otherwise, I can't trust you guys to behave. Okay? So now this is the fourth covenant. So now the Israelites are back in the promised land, but again, and even though there's laws, they still become wicked, and they start to worship false gods. So God punishes them, and God is now looking for a good leader of the Israelites. And then finally he finds a person named David, who becomes the king of the Israelites. And God says to David, you are the person I've been looking for all eternity. You are the best example of what it means to be a faithful follower of me, Yahweh. Okay? And so this is something called the Davidic covenant. The Davidic covenant states that God will always favor Israel as the chosen nation. And the house of David will rule Israel forever. Okay? So guys, quick question here. Who wrote the Bible? Probably this guy, okay? Right? You have to guess who wrote the Bible. Probably not Moses, probably not Abraham, probably not Noah, probably not Adam, probably this guy, okay? Because he's saying that all these five, okay, I am the best. I'm the person that God loves the most. My family will rule the world because that is God's will. Okay? Now, of course, that's not what happens. Eventually, David has a son named Solomon, and these two are considered the two best rulers of Israel. And this is what we call the Davidic kingdom, okay? The Davidic kingdom, the golden age of Israel. But after Solomon, the Israelites turned wicked again, and then God had to punish them and scatter Israel across the world. Okay? And so the last covenant is the arrival of Jesus. What Jesus does is that, first of all, he reasserts the law of Moses and say to the Israelite people, remember Moses and his law, because that's what God wants. And then he sacrificed himself in order to free the Israelites of the original sin. Right? Because God's pissed off at people because people ate the fruit. That's the original sin. That's the first crime of disobedience against God. So by killing himself, Jesus frees humanity of the original sin. He redeems humanity. Okay? Now, the last thing that Jesus does is he creates a new covenant. Okay? A new covenant between humanity and God. From now on, because Jesus has freed everyone from the original sin, everyone can now be with God. You don't have to be Israelite. You don't have to follow the Mosaic law. You don't even have to come from the family of David. Anyone and everyone can now love God, and God will love that person back. Okay? And this, of course, starts Christianity. All right? So this, guys, is called Judaism, what the Jews believe. Okay? And this is all 6 is what Christians believe, Christianity. Right? The first 5 covenants are what Jews believe to be true. But they do believe that eventually someone will return to restore the kingdom of David. Okay? But not Jesus. Not Jesus. The Christians believe that Jesus is the final prophet. Okay? In fact, Jesus is God himself. That's why it's called Christianity. Because they believe in Jesus Christ. So this is the entire history of Judaism and Christianity. What they believe, officially. Any questions before I move on? Okay? So now, as you can understand, if you are a true Christian or you're a true Jew, there are actually lots of issues with this understanding. Okay? The first issue is, why did God have to kick us out of the Garden of Eden? I mean, was eating of fruit so bad as to banish us from paradise? Like, what was wrong with eating that fruit? Okay, that's a great mystery in the religion. Why did the original sin happen? And why was God so angry? Second problem is Noah. I mean, like, God destroyed the world because we were wicked. But after he destroyed the world, we were still wicked. So why did God have to destroy the world in the first place? If he's God, then should he understand how humans are? Wouldn't he understand that destroying the world would just, I mean, it doesn't really do anything, okay? So that's kind of strange. The last problem is Jesus. Who was Jesus? And why did he have to kill himself? What did God have to send his only son to die for humanity? Okay, so if you're new to Christianity, the very idea of Jesus actually doesn't make much sense to you. I grew up in the West. I grew up in a Christian world, and it never made sense to me, okay? People told me about how great Jesus was, like, okay, the story doesn't make any sense. So if you're a really smart person, there are lots of questions about this interpretation of the Bible, and these are the 3 major ones. Okay? So now what I'll do now is I'll explain to you what the esoteric, what secret societies believe really happened.
Forecast, plenty of sunshine through today. We should reach our normal high. Cloudy and windy today with gusts up to 40 miles. Showers and thunderstorms today with strong southwesterly winds.
A Terry bag. Shop now at CoachOutlet.com.
Disney Plus, Hulu, and HBO Max together for $19.99 a month.
We need to find this crew.
Wow. Many action.
What happened?
The ultimate bundle for an unbelievable price. For a limited time, get up to $40 in MasterCard virtual reward cards when you buy Show Rotella.
When you travel with Hilton for business, you get booking tools that save you money and time. Plus, earn Hilton Honors Points for your...
So, I want to start with Noah. Why did God destroy the world? The reason why God destroyed the world is not because of humans, but because of something else. These people are called the Nephilim. Okay, also, by the way, if you guys are interested in learning more, there are 2 books that are not part of the Bible, but which will give you insight into the esoteric knowledge, okay? The first is called the Book of Enoch. Book of Enoch. The second is called the Gospel of Thomas. Okay? All right. So I am using these 2 books as sources for my explanation, okay? So the Nephilim are children of angels and women. Okay, so what happened was that the angels who were supposed to watch humanity came down and saw, wow, these humans, these females are really beautiful. So what do? Well, they have sex with them, right? And then what happens? They have lots and lots of children. And what do these children do? These children enslave humanity. So these people are called Nephilim, okay? So if you don't understand what happened, let's do a thought experiment. Let's just say that there's this group of superhumans called the Avengers. You know, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, okay? And they fight Thanos and they save the world. And now what do? Well, they're bored, so they start to have lots and lots of sex. They have lots and lots of children. And these children now are like demigods, right? So what do? Well, they enslave humanity. But then what do? Well, they start fighting amongst themselves. Okay? So that's basically what happened. So God had to destroy the Nephilim because they are not natural. Angels and humans are not supposed to have sex with each other. And like this creates a new power called the Nephilim. The problem, though, is the Nephilim are divine, and therefore they cannot be killed. So you can get rid of their mortal bodies, but now they become demons who live underground and are in the shadows. And guess what, guys? It's still here today. So these 2 societies, they believe the Nephilim are real, and they still control the world. The richest people in the world are actually Nephilim. Okay? Because they've been around for thousands of years, and therefore they control the development of humanity. Okay, so they're called the Nephilim. So that's easy to understand. But another question then is, wait a minute, why did Adam eat that fruit, and why did Jesus have to kill himself? Well, now it gets really complicated. Okay? So now I need to explain to you what the secret societies believe. Okay? Remember, they believe that mind leads to matter. What does that mean? Okay? Let me explain what this means. Mind leads to matter. In the beginning, the true God is called the monad. Okay, the one. So just think of this as the core of the universe, the sun, the divine sun. The monad is so powerful that when he breathes, okay, he vibrates divine energy. And over millions of years, this divine energy creates new life forms. Okay? So the first life form are called the dyads. Dyads are just pairs, okay? Usually male, female, that are children of the monad. And they're able by themselves to create new universes as well, okay? So the dyads start to emanate, okay? So the entire universe is vibration. It's vibrational energy. It's the breathing of these cosmic beings. Okay? And over time, over millions of years, these vibrations become atoms, which then leads to matter. Okay? That's what they mean by mind leads to matter. Now, one of these dyads, named Sophia, decide, you know what? I can be just as good as the monad. What does the monad do? The monad is able to propagate by itself, by himself. He doesn't need to mate. So Sophia says, you know what? I'm going to produce something by myself. I'm going to have a child by myself to prove I am the monad, okay? So she does this, and she creates a new being, okay? A new being. This is called the demiurge. There are different names. We'll call them the demiurge. The demiurge is a monster, a monstrosity, because it goes against the natural order. So then Sophia's like, oops, I should have done that. So what does she do? She abandons the monstrosity. She throws him away and hides him in a sea of clouds. So no one knows he actually exists. Okay? Even the demiurge doesn't know he exists. The demiurge does not know about this world, right? Therefore, he believes that he must be the one to God, capable of creating new life. So what does he create? Us. Okay? He creates the planet Earth. And then he creates Adam and Eve. Okay? That's what a monster would do. Okay? Look at this history. What kind of God would kick someone out of paradise for eating a fruit? A monster would do it. Right? What kind of God would kill a people for no particular reason? A monster would do that. Okay? What kind of God would demand that a people be loyal to that person? A monster. What kind of God would enforce his will on the people? A monster. What kind of God would say to someone, you're the only person I like, everyone else I hate? A monster would do that. Okay? So, in other words, the true secret that these secret societies are trying to keep is the God we worship today is the false God. And we are actually in a prison created by this false God. And that's who Jesus was. Jesus was a cosmic being sent by the monad to tell us the truth about the world. And that's when he died, because the Roman Empire could not allow people to see the truth. If I told you the truth, you would know it right away. You would wake up. Therefore, the truth tellers must be killed. Okay? So that's what these secret societies believe. They believe that the monad exists, and the mind of the monad is what creates the universe. And Jesus was sent to remind us that even though we're in a prison, there's still the monad in you. There's a spark in you, a divine light in you that you can activate. And if you activate it, then you will return to the monad. You will see the truth for yourself. And when you die, your soul, which is part of the monad, will want to return to the monad and can escape this world. But to activate this light, you must be a good person. You must love one another. You must reject money and materialism. And grades, okay? Grades in school. You must reject competition. You must reject material wealth in order to pursue spiritual happiness. Okay? That was the message of Jesus. Now you can imagine that the powers that be, the Nephilim, would not like this, okay? It's a threat to Nephilim, who now control the prison created by the demiurge. It's also a threat to the demiurge. And that's why these secret societies have been, over the centuries, been repressed, been executed, okay, been massacred. But they believe that it is their duty to protect this secret, because only by protecting the secret can humanity be ultimately saved. Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Any questions? Right? So you have the official version, which is what you're taught in school, but now you have the secret version that is only taught in secret societies.
Wow. Hey, man. That was a lot, bro. He went on about, he talked about the reptilians, basically, that rule the world, the demons, Nephilim. He talked about all of it. I gotta go read that book, he said, Book of Enoch. I never read that book, but I've heard of it. But this is the kind of teacher that everybody needs to come across, bro. I came across this dude like last week, and I was like, wow, there's actually a person teaching this in that classroom. And most of them kids, he teach high school, they probably ain't gonna get it. I'm not that too far removed from high school. I'm still Gen Z, so it's like, damn. That dude got a lot of wisdom that he's sharing. I'm glad he started making YouTube videos, because if I had a teacher like that, I'd definitely be in his class in the front row, like listening and shit like that. Shit was powerful. He exposed the America, secret societies, no topic was off limits. And he actually had knowledge of shit. He wasn't just saying shit. You can Google and research all the shit that he said. But yeah, that's that's enough for this episode. TeeVee, man. Subscribe to this TNT, man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in.